So I just thought it was kind of an interesting thing. Now I'll tell you two other stories about the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. One, I think they're very telling. We worked on a program called Promise Keepers, which a Protestant group started, an interdenominational meeting, and they would bring together as many as 60,000 men who would make promises to their families, and they make these 7 promises. And when they would come, they would bring their pastors. Well, they never had Catholics until 1994. And the first time they invited Catholics was at Indianapolis, Indiana, in the same facility we have scheduled for this Eucharistic Conference. And they asked me, somebody at the Archdiocese, would you get involved in this and help promote this? And I prayed about it, and I said, I don't feel called to do that. I said, I feel called to open up the Catholic Church, the beautiful old Catholic Church across the street, and have confessions for these men. Because if they're going to go through a conversion experience and they're Catholics, going up to the altar and getting a Bible and doing what they call an altar call in the United States isn't going to cut it. I mean, if they come from a sacramental background, they've been to confession, they'll need confession. So in order to get into this organization, the only way we could publicize is we did posters, and the posters had the Jesus of Divine Mercy, that's the original one, and there may be some around here. It's very similar to this image of the Jesus of Divine Mercy. We put those on these posters, and our volunteers on Friday, it was a Friday, Saturday night event, all day Saturday. On Friday night, our volunteers went in to put the posters up in this 60,000 person indoor stadium facility. And this Protestant group wouldn't let them do it because they said this isn't approved in advance, and we only do things that are approved in advance. So I thought, how are we going to get the word out? So that night we had the doors open in the church, and quite a few men saw the doors open and came in and went to confession. And we made it available for Protestant people to pray, and they could go even see the priest if they wanted to. So the next morning I got up and I went down to St. John's, and I got there, and I had a lot of work to do in my office, and I was counting on some other volunteers, and the volunteers weren't there. And we had a complication with the street being blocked off so these men could march to a place for lunch. So I said, well, now relax, this isn't your work anyway. This is Jesus' work, because I was inspired by the devotion of Maria Faustina, the Jesus of Divine Mercy, and her diary, where the sacrament of penance and the Eucharist are so heavily focused on by Jesus. So I just went before the tabernacle, and I said a Chaplet of Divine Mercy, and I said, now Jesus, you got to work a miracle here. I said, this is your work, not mine. You know, none of the volunteers are here. And there's no way we're going to be able to get the word out to this large group, I don't think. So I prayed that, and I went back into the rectory and made a few phone calls, and the volunteers weren't there yet. And so I was starting out to pray another Chaplet of Divine Mercy before the tabernacle. And as I did, a man came in the church, and there were only 2 of us there, and this man came in and he said, I have to see the pastor immediately. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, I don't know. He said, we've done something wrong over here about this Promise Keepers. I don't know what it is, but he said, I need to see. I said, well, he's gone to his college anniversary, and I'm kind of in charge of the church right now. And I said, did someone call you from the Archdiocese? No. Did someone call you from this parish? No. I said, okay. I said, well, all I know is, I said, I'm working on this thing, and I said, the problem we have is that we can't get these posters up inside the building across the street. Mind you, I didn't even know what this man did. And I said, the other thing is that, you know, my volunteers aren't here. He said, well, you know, he says, I'm the general manager of the stadium across the street. And he said, if you'll give me your 150 posters, I'll personally put them up for you. And I said, isn't that strange? That's wonderful. I've forgotten about the prayer, I said, you understand, because I'm focusing on, oh, this is great, you know. Then he said, let me introduce you to my co-manager, and we're going to make special arrangements for your volunteers to get through the police line and get in here to the church parking lot. And I asked him again, I said, well, who told you to come over here? I said, someone had to tell you that there was a complaint or something like that. He said, no one called me. I said, well, can't you tell me? He says, well, if you must know, about 5 or 10 minutes ago, I was sitting at my desk in the office of the general manager of the Hoosier Dome and Convention Center, and he said, listen to these words, I was seized with such guilt that I must have mercy on St. John's Church over this Promise Keepers program. And I could get no relief until I came over here and found out what needed to be done and did it. He personally took the 150 posters and he put them up, and he said, don't worry, since I run the place, they can't tell me to take them down. And that night we had 7 priests hearing confession for 3 hours with 7 men in each of the 7 lines at almost all times. Well over 100 men had their confessions heard. There may have been over 300 actually when it was all said and done. So to me, I thought this was a great sign of the power of the Chaplet of Divine Mercy.